We love
Jeremy
HipHop.
HECHT in the building.
What's good? How's it going?
I'm good. The audio is all crispy. You got your microphone set up. I know that ahead of time.
Yes, sir. Sounded good?
It sounds great, man.
Okay, good.
How's life going over there in La La Land in LA?
I mean, it's kind of crazy out here. I'm not gonna lie. I got my beanie on only in solidarity with in Winnipeg right now. I hear it's -32. In Toronto right now, my parents are out there. I heard it's kind of cold right now too. So yeah, solidarity there. But the fires are kind of being handled for the most part. I know that it's still going on. It's still happening in San Diego, and there's still people kind of dealing with the repercussions of that, and the displacement is kind of crazy with people losing their homes. But besides that, trying to, keep spirits high. People are rapping, it's 2025. There's a lot of good music to talk about. So, all good on my end. How are you doing?
I'm well, man. Over here in Ontario, it's true. It's like -24 with the wind chill they're saying right now. It's like -14 as they're just saying on the temperature, and that's Celsius for my American audience. Okay, y'all do the translation or the conversion.
I tried to explain to people when it gets to -30, which you experience, maybe not often in Toronto, in Winnipeg often, and -30 is pretty much the same in Celsius and Fahrenheit. So whatever you can imagine that to be is what it is.
Facts. Well, let's get into it because we got a lot to talk about. You know what I'm saying? I'm really happy to get this conversation going on here. I want to give a big salute to Justin Hunte actually before I get to your intro, because that's the connective glue to how we've connected here through the Culture United series, and that's been a dope series, man.
Yeah, shout out to Justin, the GOAT. I always say I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it weren't for Justin opening the doors, and we wouldn't be here if it weren't for Justin. So yeah, the company man on YouTube.
Yeah, salute to the company man. Well, let's get into this gentleman that I have here, and for my listening audience who are hearing the voice and not seeing the person on the screen, I want to just go through a few things here. Former content strategy consultant and video interview specialist for Power 105.6 or point. I forget the point. Right?
Power 106, LA.
Right in LA. Head of video content and at HipHopDX. Co-host of The Bigger Picture with Elliot Wilson and DJ Head, and fellow Canadian. We have Jeremy HECHT in the motherfucking building. Let's go, man.
Hey, feels good. It feels good. As long as they haven't revoked my Canadian citizenship, my right to claim Canadian because of my associations, I appreciate it.
Well, listen, man, we could get into a little bit of that before we get into our full conversation here, because sometimes I wonder, I see you there on the podcast. You're there with one of JEEZY's ops now, I guess.
Maybe two.
Elliot Wilson, right? Well, okay, we'll start with one with DJ Head. That's for sure. But Elliot Wilson is a new op that came through this Kendrick Lamar Drake battle.
This is what we're here for.
I think so.
Yeah.
Why do we create this show? Because we saw in the culture something phenomenal going on. This Kendrick battle with old boy.
Yes.
And then you're sitting there as the Canadian. Do you ever get any kind of like backlash, or do you ever see anything in the comments like traitor or anything like that?
I mean, at its most aggressive, I've seen people say that I should give up my citizenship. I've seen people say that I shouldn't be allowed back in the country. Of course, I've dealt with the stands in the X comments or on Instagram, but I like to consider those as the fringe groups that I don't really too much associate with. I do mute people on Twitter now. Elliot blocks people. I simply mute you because I don't want you to feel like you won something by me blocking you. So you won't even know. I'm not seeing your post. But it was funny because when I first started, right, I'm sitting between Elliot, who at one point had a great relationship with Drake. Of course, they've had a lot of back and forth with him doing interviews, his Crown series. He was at Drake's house, so he was, very much on that side at one point. And then Head, of course, his association with Kendrick and, their friendship that goes back over a decade. So I did feel kind of in the middle, especially, East Coast, West Coast, and then I'm the Canadian.
Yeah.
So at first it was kind of difficult too, because it's like, I didn't realize everything I'm saying is going to reach these people. But
Right.
I very quickly learned like Kendrick and Drake are very much going to see or hear by proxy whatever I do say or whatever said on that stage. So
Yeah.
for me, my only thing I could ever do is tell my honest truth. And if that means I'm going against the country because I disagree with something Drake's done or his antics, then so be it. And if that means I go against the place that I currently live in because I disagree with something Kendrick does or don't like something he does, then so be it. All I can do is kind of give my truth.
Has that happened yet, though? For example, like just you being there in the West Coast, right? Have you given I won't say an anti-Kendrick take, but I didn't like this thing that not just Kendrick, but somebody on the West Coast did, and then you receive backlash because of where you're from?
No, I wouldn't say it's been as much as me receiving backlash for not liking something Kendrick did, because there hasn't been anything since I've been on that show that I've been hypercritical about. But
Right.
definitely there's people who, if I said something positive about Drake, whether it be his catalog or a song, I liked Circadian Rhythm a lot when that dropped. I still had Drake on my Spotify Wrapped. I still listened to his catalog clearly a lot. So when things like that happen, you get, the Kendrick fan, like super fans being like, you're a traitor. But for the most part, I really haven't dealt with too much hate from the West Coast fan bases or Kendrick stands. Like I really haven't dealt with that much, but also it's probably because there hasn't been a take I've had that's been super hypercritical. But also there hasn't been anything that I've completely disagreed with. I would have no problem saying it, but as of right now, since I've been on that show specifically, the man has been very calculated and has been making some great moves. So it's been tough to be super critical.
No, he doesn't really speak much to make any commentary on in the first place, right? As far as Kendrick, right?
That's been the craziest part, is he maybe has said 10 sentences or less since the battle. And a few of them have been half sentences, like the Super Bowl announcement, like no round twos is maybe the most he's said out loud besides being on stage at the pop out. And even then he didn't really talk. Yeah. He just dropped, did his thing, album, singles, hit records, beefs, music videos, and then just kind of goes back. But it's funny because we still see him as the most active he's been maybe in his career, and he still hasn't spoken, which has been a masterclass in how to act and not talk too much.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. I wanted to ask you even just about the podcast, the bigger picture, because I've been going through the HipHopDX channel, and I see a lot of episodes of that being uploaded more than anything right now. That's like the main thing that you guys are focusing on over there. So how's the evolution of that? And like, let's talk about the genesis first, and then let's get to the evolution.
So it started actually, like there's no, we joke about, thanking Drake and Kendrick for this podcast starting. Like there's no denying that was the genesis. That was page one, right? It was during the weekend that Family Matters and Meet the Grahams came out, Friday, right? So Saturday morning, I get a message. It was me and Elliot in a group chat with a lot of our production crew, and our CEO, who recently purchased HipHopDX, Jared Meyer's name is, he founded Raucous Records. He founded UpRocks.
Right.
DX and UpRocks kind of merged, or UpRocks took over HipHopDX. He said, yo, we should do something surrounding this moment. This moment is crazy. I was covering it on my own platform, doing lyric breakdowns. Elliot, of course, covering the culture as he always does, posting everything that he can even find. And his page is kind of just like a memorial of hip hop. Everything that happened. So he was like, let's do something. So Elliot and I were brainstorming some people. I had a list, I still have it in my phone, of like potential guests. And what we were going to do something similar to this, where we were going to have call-ins, we were going to have a screen, and we were just going to call in our friends. And it could have been anyone from like Jason Martin to Alchemist, anyone who was involved or would have an interesting perspective. Right. And first person on that list happened to be DJ Head, because at that time he was one of the people on Twitter where it was kind of him and academics were battling to some degree of like feeding little pieces of information and telling Drake to drop. And, so Elliot's like, I think it'll be fun if we just have me, you, and Head. Let's just talk. Let's see what happens. So the morning of, Elliot said, we'll call it the bigger picture. Let's put me, you, and Head on all as three hosts rather than Head being a guest, and just see what happens. It was supposed to be a one-off. Not like us had dropped that day. So we're filming Sunday morning. The Hard Part 6 hadn't dropped. It was supposed to be a one-off, but I think everyone in the room felt something special. Like, oh, there's chemistry here. Like, I had known the guys, but I had never sat down. Like, that was the longest I had a conversation with Elliot, and the longest I had a conversation with Head. And I assume the longest Head and Elliot had a conversation in one place, in terms of like 2 hours, right? So I think everyone in the room just felt like, oh, this is special. Something is here. You can't buy chemistry. You could put 7 people in a room together, and if they don't gel, same with, when we do Culture United, like if it didn't work, it didn't work. It just happened to work.
Yeah.
So I think the evolution on 2 fronts, one front of the show has become, it started off, we wanted to be a hip hop debate show. So it wasn't necessarily trying to be a podcast. We wanted to have disagreements. We wanted to have friendly arguments. We wanted to be able to discuss music and hip hop. Right. Whereas a lot of these podcasts discuss, lifestyle and politics and sports. Let's keep it music based. Let's keep it hip hop driven. And let's talk about the lyrics. Let's talk about the actual bars. Let's talk about the music. So that kind of has evolved into our chemistry and our personalities meshing in a certain way. But for me, my evolution, I feel like, has come on like becoming someone that has become peers with a lot of the people to some degree that I grew up looking up to. And so realizing, oh, I'm in a space where my voice holds weight, or my opinion holds weight, or if I say a take, the artist is going to see it. So I had to evolve into, I can't just want to be liked. I have to be somebody who's respected. And so at that point, recently, it came to a turning point where I feel like, even if it harms my public appearance to someone who I looked up to, or an artist I like, or whatever it may be, if I don't stand on my truth, then I'm not going to be respected in this space. And so I think going into this year, I have a newfound sense of confidence in who I am, where I'm at in this space, and the things I say I really want to mean.
No, that's dope, man. And one thing also when it comes to podcasting, as somebody who's been podcasting for going on 8 years, right? There's one thing, like, we do interviews, and then I also do my weekly episodes with my co-host Dusty Wallace and DJ Czar, and we give our takes on the culture and on people in the culture. But it's a fine line of doing interviews and speaking on these people at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So with you who's been interviewing people prior to this, but now you're giving your POV and your takes on shit, like, has that affected some of the relationships? Has it made it harder to get certain interviews that you were looking at in the past?
I haven't experienced it yet. We'll see, because I would say, like, the interviews I was doing, were either on a red carpet or someone coming into the office, or, but I wasn't speaking about the artist. My main focus was either, a script, which was a YouTube script about their artist process in the studio, or it would be me asking them questions that I deemed to be insightful or that fans wanted to know. I was always the guy who spoke for, I feel like, the fan. What's this one, like when I first interviewed JEEZY, the question that went viral for my first interview was, why are Kanye's ad-libs, or why are your ad-libs still on Kanye's Can't Tell Me Nothing? And this resurfaced on Drink Champs, but in 2019, when I asked him that kind of got picked up because it was something I genuinely wanted to know. So I try to lead with curiosity. I try to lead with passion. So I assume that if I run into somebody who I've said something about that maybe disagrees with my take, I would hope that at the very least they see I had integrity with it, or I wasn't just slandering, or, I didn't misspeak. I just said something that I believed in the moment.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened. So I'm covering the Grammys in February on the red carpet. If there's an artist who for some reason feels a way about something I've said, all I can do is respect that. I wouldn't necessarily want to go speak to somebody who's talk shit about me, or if I did, I'd want to do it in like a banter way, or a fun way, or a respectful way, or maybe I'd just call them out like, yo, you were talking shit about my house. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But we'll see. I have dealt with it in terms of like the publications problems with artists. For example, there was one time where JID, shout out to Jid, who he's one of my favorite artists right now in terms of like skill and ability. But we had a writer at HipHopDX who wrote a review of him, and it was an unfavorable review. It was his last album, which I really liked, and he kind of trashed it a little bit. And Jid ended up posting on Twitter, like he posted his picture and he said, like, you know, like, this is the guy who's writing the review. Like, everybody go, like, you know, comment. Like, he was upset. You know, granted, it's his art, so he has the right to be upset about someone critiquing it. So when he's on the red carpet and he came up to say what's up, he just was about to do an interview, and shout out to Elise, who helps a lot with artist relations on the carpet, and she produced the bigger picture for us. But she was basically like, she saw him look at the name that said HipHopDX, and he was ready to walk out. Like, he was like, "Oh no, I'm not doing an interview." And she's like, "Wait, that's different. This is a video.
It's Jeremy.
You don't know." And you know, I ended up having a very respectful conversation with him and telling him, you know, like what lyrics I liked and asking him about a certain song in his album. So it was like that mended in the moment. Same with MGK. MGK has had problems with what we've said on the website, and I told him I have nothing to do with that. Like, I'm not writing articles, I'm not on every social post. Like, I do my art. So if you don't respect the platform, that's fine, but you don't have to disrespect me. So right. I think all I can do is lead with being honest, and if it affects a relationship, then that wasn't a relationship that was supposed to be long term anyways.
And to be honest, like, when it comes to you personally, Jeremy, like, I haven't seen you crash out yet. Yeah, and you know what I mean by crash out? Like, I haven't seen a post starting to go viral on social media where you're there in the middle of Elliot and DJ Head, like, yelling, like, "There's a drink, get him out of here!" You know, one of those ones. And
you'll never see it. I won't say you'll never see me go in, and maybe I don't want this to be one of those posts that age badly where, like, it'll be like, "You'll never see me crash out," and then it, like, cuts to
next week's episode.
Yeah, next, like, 5 minutes later. But you won't see an unfounded level of emotion like that from me unless it comes from severe anger or if somebody really does something I disagree. I have no problem standing on my disagreement or my disappointment or my flat out disgust with people. Like, if they did something that I'm like, this is fucked up, let me stand on it, I have no problem with that. But to see me yell, even the people closest to me would have to do, like, if people close to me see me that upset, they know they've done something severely wrong. They're almost in shock. They'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know. Like, I'm sorry." So I hope
this album here, throw it in rice.
Yeah. So hopefully you don't see that.
Yeah, but you know, you do sit, and we're gonna get to some history in a second. But you do sit with some controversial gentlemen, right?
Yes.
And one thing I'd like to see if we can get resolved as a Toronto man is the relationship that has been frayed between Elliot Wilson, aka West Coast Wilson, and Drizzy Drake. Discover Cans, where quality meets innovation. With over 24 premium strains, each carefully sealed in our signature cans for maximum freshness. We're redefining the cannabis experience. Trusted Canada-wide for consistency and reliability. We deliver the product you deserve. Elevate your expectations and explore the difference with Cans. You can find Cans on Instagram at @Cans_Canada, or you can find them on the Diamond Club page, Diamond Club_Ontario. Make sure to use the code WeLoveHipHop on the way out and get yourself a little discount. Salute to the sponsors. Cheer!
I would love to see that as well. I would love to see that.
I don't know, man. Like, from when that post went out months ago and he was calling him a rat, I was like, what happened? That was such a beautiful relationship, like live interviews. There was so much moments, man.
And I told him, it's funny, the first time I ever talked to Elliot was on a red carpet when I was interviewing him, and I asked him about, I was like, it was him and B-Dot, and I was like, Elliot, you know, like, you're kind of responsible for the Drake and Kendrick tension because of your Control interview. Like, did you know that moment was going to happen? And he kind of went through the moment and said, like, I knew that it was and this is my cat, Kit Cudi. He knew that it was energy in the air, and people were like wanting to ask. So when the crowd started saying Kendrick, he was like, okay, I have to ask about the Control verse. Now, I credit and blame Elliot as a joke, but also I'm kind of serious because that interview where Drake kind of showed that he felt a way about control and maybe got a little bit more sensitive than some of the rappers had expressed. I'm not saying that they weren't sensitive because I think a lot of them were, but they didn't express that openly. And Drake was a person who did, which led to tuck a sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes. That led to the shots back and forth on Nothing Was the Same. And then afterwards. So I was joking with Elliot. So he clearly played a very pivotal role in not only him and Drake's elevation, Drake's career, his elevation, his career, but in Kendrick and Drake's tension to some degree or another. So that I feel like is a legendary moment. Then we have the interview at Drake's house, which is huge, and that probably the best Drake interview we'll ever get, and probably the most honest Drake interview we'll ever get. Maybe he does one again where he really reflects, but I don't see it happening anytime soon.
And also the last hip hop interview, the last interview really with the culture. Like, yes, he had the Yachty interview, but that was still very lighthearted.
Yeah, and that's his boy. Like, and then we had the Bobby one, and so I think that's where some of their tension started, like the Bobby Althoff thing where she was, I think he said something about, I don't know the exact quote, but it was something like critical of that interview and asking why Drake never sits, with the culture, to your point, which he hadn't since 2020 or 2019 when that dropped, end of New Year's 2020, I believe. And so that probably severed the relationship a little, but to my knowledge, they were cool after that. So I don't know. Like, people ask me like what I actually don't know. And we've spoken about it on air and I don't know why he would have sent that emoji. Like, I don't know if he thought that maybe Elliot was posting too much about Kendrick on his feed during the battle, or maybe he felt like he was biased, or maybe like, cause the thing that people like to point at is our show, but we didn't sit until after Not Like Us. And he sent that rat emoji right before Family Matters. So we didn't even have a planned show. Like, that's the other thing people need to understand. We had no plans of doing a show. Me and Elliot were going to work on some stuff together. There was no DJ head until Sunday morning. And we had no plans of making this a show. It was supposed to be a one-off. And that idea didn't come until like 2 hours before Not Like Us came out. So I don't know what the issues are. Maybe it's irreparable at this point because of things that have been said or because of things that have been done. But I would love to see them together. I have Elliot's Scorpion jacket that he was wearing on episode 1. He handed it to me and said that I was better suited to wear it. So, I can give it back to Elliot the day that they meant things.
That's crazy. Hold on. Before we continue, man, that's how bad it's become. The Elliot's like, yo, I don't even want this jacket anymore. Like, that's memorabilia right there.
And it's a nice jacket. I wore it in Toronto. And like the thing is, I know how much that meant to him. So I know he actually was like, to me, it felt like getting the rock chain, like it was a mentor passing down to a mentee. But I think it also was like hurtful. He's like, damn, like I can't wear this without thinking about what the boy. It's like
passing on your deceased grandparents' heirloom, bro. Like,
honestly,
they're not in my life anymore. You can have it, Jeremy. Like, whoa.
No, I felt the weight. I might have to sage the jacket. I'm not gonna lie, but
every time you're wearing that, you're wearing a story.
Yes, and people are like, "Oh, where'd you get that from?" Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you about this one rat emoji.
Next time people ask you that, tell them go to the We Love Hip Hop podcast and go check out the story that I told you.
There we go, and we'll see the full story.
Exactly.
I like
exactly. That. So let's go back a little bit, man, because like I said in the beginning, we are fellow Canadians. I'm from Montreal originally. I've been living in Toronto probably almost 30 years when I really think about it. So let me just say I'm from Toronto.
Yeah.
But you're from Winterpeg, aka Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Yes, sir.
Right.
That is home.
A little bit different, a lot bit different than Toronto, right?
Yeah, people look down on it.
Well, Toronto. Listen, I'm going to just give you, on the behalf of Torontonians, my apologies, because I know we could be a little bit arrogant. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what happens is it's funny because I host open mics here at a company called Something Dope for the People, and I always check with the crowd. I'll be like, where's everyone from? Who's here from LA? Whatever. And it's people from all over. And every once in a while, I'll be like, anyone else from Canada here? And whenever somebody says like, yeah, me, I'll always tell the crowd, I'll be like, all right, watch how this goes. Okay. where are you from? And if they say Toronto, and I'll be like, oh, nice, I'm from Winnipeg. And then their reaction is always like, oh, like it's just like, oh, okay. But the thing about LA is like, they don't know the difference between Toronto and Winnipeg. It's just Canada. A lot of people, all they knew was Drake about Canada beforehand if they had never visited. So, people think it's cool to be from Winnipeg out here, but Torontonians look down on us. But I'm here to represent.
Yeah, man. And listen, at the end of the day, we're all Canadian. You know what I mean? That's a very Canadian thing to say too. But you're growing up over there. Generic question: what was like early life? Because I know you left sometime around university.
Yeah. So early life for me, I mean, I had a pretty loving upbringing. Like, two parents who both were very loving and supportive. Both of them kind of told me I could do anything. And I think that my confidence, my delusional confidence probably comes from an upbringing where they really did believe in me when it came to doing anything. I didn't think I wasn't going to make it to the NHL as a goalie. I just was worried I wouldn't be able to lift up the Stanley Cup because it would be too heavy.
Right.
So like that was my mindset. I didn't think I wasn't gonna make it to the NBA. I just thought, can I make it to the NBA and play in the NHL at the same time? Has that ever been done? Like I didn't think I couldn't be the biggest rapper in the world and get signed and go on tour. I just thought, oh, am I gonna be able to do it by the time I want to, which was 21 years old? Like I had these visions and I was always supported to do those things. What I will say is, even though I had a lot of support internally, being someone from Winnipeg, Canada, who has rap dreams or wants, especially being a white suburban Jewish kid from Winnipeg, Canada, who has rap dreams, that's not something that anyone else around you really has. So for me, it was almost like I thought in this bubble of like, I'm trying to do something that no one else around me has done. And I can't see anyone to look at and be like, oh, I can do that too. Now there were people like, I had songs, on the radio and I had, shows that were sold out, a couple hundred people. And I reached to my point, what I thought was the peak. And I had people offering me, local record label deals at 16, 17 years old. But to me, it was like, I wanted to be in the world. I wanted to be worldwide with what I do. I wanted my voice to reach people. So that was always kind of my mindset of like, I want to be the biggest at what I do in the world. I don't really want to be the biggest at what I do in Winnipeg, but I think it took reaching my own ceiling personally there in order for me to be like, I need to expand into more. And at that point I was already doing journalism as well. I was already writing articles. I was already, doing phone interviews for, ironically, a magazine that Elliot Wilson was editor-in-chief of, Respect Magazine. And that was when I was 18, 19 years old, 20 years old in Winnipeg and doing phone interviews for like this New York company.
And you got a psychology degree. You went to University of Southern?
No, so I went to University of Manitoba for philosophy. I was studying philosophy, psychology, sociology, and I got my arts degree. And at that point, I was writing for the school paper, and I was just trying to find ways to connect outside of my area. I was still rapping, so at that point, I would like be doing interviews with people, and then I would rap for them. I'd be like, "All right, can I spit 16 for you?" And they'd be like, "Wait, that was kind of hard." Like, and so actually, I realized my way out of Winnipeg to LA or New York is through school. So I called it the J. Cole method. And I was like, okay, I'll go to school, but I'm like where J. Cole went to school, but he was trying to work for Jay-Z. I was going to school, but I was trying to work for the person at the radio, whatever that meant. And so then I got a scholarship to University of Southern California, USC, studying communications for my master's degree. And I was there, focused, but I was focused on how do I make it in the rap game? Like not just as an artist, but as a media personality.
Right.
And from there, like, I feel like once I touched down here, the possibilities became endless. I started to feel like all the visions I had at one point were actually possible.
And before, like, cause you're telling me about the rap stuff, what was your rap name?
The Hype.
The Hype.
It was self-given, unfortunately.
That's yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Trust me. I've come to terms with it. It wasn't great.
It's kind of hard becoming a rapper out of Winnipeg. I'll just say, from somebody coming here from Toronto, especially somebody who used to live in Montreal. I understand what you talk about when it comes to the ceiling, because when I hit the ceiling over there, I was like, I got to get out of here, and that's when I ended up over here.
And now, when you get to Toronto, you probably feel like, okay, there's much more in terms of possibilities, right?
Oh yeah. I'm trying to get over there to where you're at. In the United States right now.
No, I feel it.
Right. But even with the scene, before we get into your American travels, have you ever even tapped in or because the Toronto music scene is the biggest scene in Canada. We just, we off top, we got to just say that, right? Mm-hmm. So when I go across Canada, people always talk about the Toronto music scene. Were you tapped into the scene back then, like when you were coming up in the rap game?
Into the Toronto scene or the what?
Yeah, the Toronto scene.
I was, but I wasn't as I would say I was an outsider. So I was looking at it from the perspective of Drake's lens. So that's why when Drake started popping in 2009. This is why, my relationship with Drake's music is so, tight, because think about it from my perspective. I'm a white Jewish suburban kid in Canada trying to be a rapper, and I'm very emotionally driven. I'm at this point, I'm in end of middle school, high school. So my main focus is music and girls. Or as Drake would put it, rapping bitches. Rapping bitches. Until all of it switches. So that was my mindset. And then I see this guy who was, a child actor, grew up in a Jewish suburban home, Canadian, emotional, likes to talk about his endeavors with women and his climbing for success in the rap game. I see this in 2009 and listen to So Far Gone, and I'm like, I found my guy. Yeah. This is exact. I didn't think that there was a place for me in this space. I truly didn't, and I accepted. And I was like, this is cool. I'll listen. I'll be an outsider. I'll listen. But once I heard Drake, and once I heard Cudi, and once I heard Sean and Wiz and the blog era, and I'm like, and Cole, and all these people are talking about climbing for success and their dealings with women, and everyday life struggles. And it didn't have to be that they were from the hardest background or grew up with all of these struggles. It was all internal for the most part, and it was their climb to success. I was like, okay, I can actually relate. So let me actually create. And from there, I think I started following, Drake in the Toronto scene as something that was aspirational. And because he was from Canada, it seemed more possible. So the fact that he started succeeding a little bit and being at the top of the rap game, and then you see other people come up underneath him, whether it be The Weeknd or Party or, even his crew like Obi O'Brien and OVO Ryan and those guys, you're seeing so I started following that, but I think I was so far of an outsider that I didn't understand the music industry at all. I didn't know who the players were. I didn't know what actually was going on. I didn't know the independent scene. So I think it took a while for me to get there.
So are you tapped in now? For example, my platform, I interview all of the up and coming rappers or the OGs and stuff. So obviously the OGs like Cardinal and all those guys, the Rascals and anybody else, that goes without saying. But I'm talking about, the Pressas and, 3M French and Robin Banks and all these different guys who are part of the more underground scene, or sometimes the drill scene, or other people like Dylan Ponders and Hawaii Mighty.
I've honestly got to tap in a little more, which I'll tap in with you about some of these people that you think I might like musically. But I've interviewed Pressa, I've interviewed Roy Woods, Smiley. All those are great guys, and the OVO team from everyone I've met has been super cool to me. Lavish, who's signed to Chubbs, he's actually from Winnipeg as well, and he was making music towards the latter end of right before I moved, and he's super talented. Me and him are cool. I've interviewed him before, and we've chopped it up a bunch of times. Who else from Toronto? I actually was out there making a bit of music for I would say the last time I was really in the studio was 2017. Okay. And I was in Toronto, but I would go to Scarborough to record. And I don't remember the name of the studio. I wish I could give them a plug, but there's some super talented people there. There was this young producer named Genius, I want to say.
Okay.
And him and his dad were there. Like he was like 15, 14 cooking. And then he ended up getting Travis Scott placements and, Jack Harlow placements. So that was cool to see from scratch. So I was like tapped in. Again, I'm not like plugged because I don't go over to Toronto to tap in with the music scene very often. But now that my family's really out there, I would love to remain more connected too. So I would love to be some sort of a bridge too with whatever I can.
You got to tap in because, like, respectfully, like all of the names that you mentioned, all talented, but they've all reached a certain level, already have certain connections where they can get to you. You understand?
Yeah.
Or get to the platforms that you're on, because there's some hungry artists out here who are ultra talented and are doing well, but they still haven't broken the international ceiling or the American market.
Who's your favorite? Who, if you could pick one or two that you think like really have potential to break free through that glass ceiling right now, like and really make it, who'd you put your bets on?
Well, I always say when people ask me who my favorite is an artist named The Crook, but he's currently incarcerated, which is another problem that we have with artists out here.
Yeah.
But then other people who are not in that, people like Toby. Toby's already doing great. He's making moves over there in the United States. He writes. He's appeared on the Games album and a bunch of other people's albums. So Toby's doing good, but is he somebody that you know?
Well, I was gonna say, is it just Tobi?
Yes.
I have seen him a lot. I actually didn't even know he was from Toronto. I think I've heard of him in the feature. Oh, from Brampton. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Shout out to, he is super talented, but I want to tap in a little more and really stream the project and listen, because he was talented from what I heard, but I really didn't even know the Canadian part.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm saying, right? And then the names like Pressa, but then he has his brother Bundog, who's amazing, right? His name might pop up on a lot of YouTube videos when it comes to like drama and stuff like that, but his music's fire. There's women that are out here doing crazy music like A.W.O.L, that's DVBLM. Fire.
Okay.
And very Toronto. You know what I'm saying? So
wait, what was that? DDBLM? DV
as in Victor, BLM as in Black Lives Matter, right?
Okay, A.W.O.L. Okay, got her. I'm about to go on a Toronto listening spree.
Listen, the best thing to do, just go over to my channel
and just
go to the interview playlist, and you'll be like, holy shit, there's so many different people that I never heard about in here. And some of these guys got millions of views. K-Money, he has a song, Come Outside, which was huge. Has like 20 million views on it.
Fire. No, I love that. And I think that's why platforms like yours are important, because it's like, yes, you're going to get the big artists that everyone talks about. Mm-hmm. But I think the regional aspect of hip hop is extremely important, especially in Canada. And to have infrastructure like your show, like your channel, like what you guys do, in order to uplift artists and give them at least a chance to tell their story and unite a little bit more in certain places is super dope. So I definitely salute what you guys are doing too.
No, it's necessary, man. And also with you, right? Just as a Canadian who's been able to break the ceiling and go to so many different places, how did you get into working at Power 106? Because that's a big station to work at, man.
I want to take a quick break from this episode to give a big shout out to Only Loud, Canada's one-stop shop for your favorite legacy brands and all things loud. Only Loud provides mail order delivery nationwide and same-day delivery to those in the Ottawa area. Check them out at onlyloud.ca or follow them on their socials, Instagram at onlyloudcanada or on Snapchat onlyloud.ca for more exclusive content. Only Loud is not just a product, it's a lifestyle. Big salute to the sponsors. Cheer.
Yeah, no, it was like when I said I moved to LA and everything seemed possible, it happened very quickly. Like I think it was actually September 11th, I believe. Unfortunate day, but I think I remember it for two reasons. I keep the ticket in my wallet.
Wow.
of this day. So it was September. Wow, you can't even see. It's like basically like
Wow.
smudged. I can't, but it's anyway. September when I moved there of 2016 is first or second month I was there, and there was a charity basketball game hosted by Power 106. At that time, the artists there were like Chris Brown, Lil Dicky before he had the show, Mike Stud. It wasn't like too many crazy big names, but Chris Brown was there. So like, it was like, it felt like star power. And keep in mind, I'm from Winnipeg. I've never even met a celebrity. I think I had met Kanye, but it was at an airport in passing. Like that was like the big star moment, but never in terms of like actual interaction. So I'm at this charity game. I had scalped a ticket, like outdoors, $5 halftime. I get there for the end. I'm like, something was calling me to go. And afterwards, the game's kind of ending, and there's 30 minutes after the game. I don't know what told me. All I can say is it was God or intuition, or maybe both. God through my intuition telling me to stay. And so I stuck around after this game, and I'm like trying to find a way down to the floor to meet the radio people. So it was Jay Cruz, who was the morning show host at that time. It was him and his team were hosting. And I remember seeing them do the halftime and like in between, and be like, damn, I want to do that. Like, that's what I want to do. Like, how do I get there? I didn't even care about meeting the artists. Like, so finally it was like 30 minutes left. I remember like, I looked at the time like, damn, why am I still here? But I remember God telling me like, stay in the building. And there was a security guard, like one security guard left. I had already asked every security guard, hey, can you let me? And again, I'm so naive. I'm like, can you just let me go talk to the radio people? They're like, no, like there's celebrities down there. You're going to try to like take pictures. I'm like, no, I just want to talk to Jay Cruz. So there's one security guard left, and he's taking a picture of one person left in an empty arena. It was just like, he's like, yo, can you take a picture? So the guy hands the phone to the security's taking a picture of this one kid. And I see that as like a clear landing. Jay Cruz is still in the building. I sneak past. He's like, hey kid. I'm like, I like brush him off, and like, I just want, yo, Cruz. And him and his assistant Mackenzie were there. Shout out to Mackenzie too. And they were like there, and he was like, yo, what's up? Like, what's up, bro? Like, how you doing? Like, like what brings you here? Like, why are you yelling my name? I'm sure like, at that point he had just started at Power. Like he was, a big person in media, but I'm sure he's like, there's other people here. Why are you talking to me? Like, what do you want here?
Yeah. There's bigger celebrities.
Yeah, exactly. Like Chris Brown's right there. And so I'm like, yo, I want to do what you do one day. How do I do it? Like, that was literally like what I asked. And he was like, yo, just like say yes to everything. Like, when an opportunity comes up, say yes to it. And then I was like, okay, and then what? And he was like, I think he like could tell how like hungry and naive and passionate I was. And he's like, all right, bro, like let me, let me get your number. Like first he told me to apply to an internship on the website. He's like, oh yeah, go to our website and apply to an internship. I was like, okay, and then what? And he's like, all right, you know what? Like, I'll give you my number. Like I'll text you. And so he texted me the next day, and shout out, I got Mac right here, but he texted me the next day. And he's like, hey, do you want to come to the studio and see an interview live? And I was like, yes. And so Mac Miller was there, and I told him, and I was like, yo, and like, even like my one meeting with Mac, I was like, yo, as a former white Jewish rapper, I just want to let you know, thank you for everything you've done for the culture. And he was like laughing, and they all like thought I was funny and like cool to be around. I wasn't doing too much, I was just kind of observing. And so I think Cruz was like, and keep in mind, I was geeked. Like, I was like in the back room after, like, with a picture of me and Mac Miller. I just moved from Winnipeg to LA, and I told people I was going to make my dreams come true. And now I'm posting a picture on Instagram of me and Mac Miller, and people are like back home, like, what the hell? What do you mean? Like, and I just
made it.
That was it. That was all they needed. Like, I think my caption probably was just like, just a couple guys hanging out. Like, it was probably some stupid shit, And so rest in peace to Mac. But Cruz afterwards comes to me, and he's just like, yo, I know you said you do interviews, let's see what you can do. Like, I got an interview with Chance the Rapper the next week. Can you send me some questions? Like, send me some notes, and I'll see, what you have. Basically, it was like my training test. And so I from there was just like, all right, like, let me write some questions. So I remember I spent like 3 or 4 days just write anytime. Like, I'm eating dinner, I'm watching Chance the Rapper interviews. I'm on the toilet, I'm watching Chance the Rapper interviews. I'm in the library, I'm listening to Chance the Rapper interviews. I sent like 3 pages of questions to his email like 2 days later. And then I didn't hear from him for like 2 weeks. And I was like, and again, I don't know how busy these people, like, I mean, I know how busy these people are, but I don't know. I've never met people in the industry. Like, he was my first industry contact. I didn't know anyone in LA when I moved here. So I'm looking at him like he's my way in. I'm like, this is divine. God told me to stay in that building. I met the person. There's no way that this connect isn't supposed to be what gets me in the industry. So I'm waiting patiently. I think I checked in a couple times. I saw they had like Kaylani in and Kyle in, and keep in mind, this is 2017. So I'm like, oh, I saw you had this person in. Let me know if you need any help with more interviews. Like, is the Chance one coming out? And so I still didn't hear from him. Again, he was having a baby at the time. Like, I look back, I'm like, if Cruz is watching this, like, you don't owe me any kind of text in that moment. Like, I don't answer. There's kids who like I help mentor now. It's like I don't answer them sometimes and they don't take it personally. So anyways, he finally does post the Chance the Rapper interview, and they're using like a couple of my questions, like the things that I wrote down, like they're asking Chance, and I'm like, oh, I'm telling people like, I wrote this question. Like I wrote this note for the intern paper. Like, you don't even understand. Chance just told me his favorite Kanye album through Cruz because I told him to ask that.
That's crazy.
And so I think from there I was like, okay, like, let me be formal about this. I wrote like an official like resume intern application, like he initially told me to do. I went through the website. Mackenzie, who was assistant, obviously remembered me. They bring me in. And from there, I just became like kind of the go-to guy for writing interview questions, writing notes, social strategy, like what headlines to do, how to go viral, like what to ask each person. And like through that, I got to meet like, you know, my favorite rappers like Big Sean, Schoolboy Q, like I helped with a Nipsey Hussle interview, rest in peace, you know, Ice Cube, like all these people I'm kind of meeting and seeing, and I'm like, I'm in it. Like, I'm here. Like, this is like, it's possible.
Yeah. And the thing that's crazy about that story there, that's from the first connection.
First one. And I didn't know anyone, and the first person I meet in the industry gave me an opportunity, and I was like, I'm not letting this down. And the thing that I tell, you know, young creatives too is, you know, make yourself invaluable to the point where they can't find you elsewhere. Like, they need whatever you bring, and whatever you bring has to uplift that person, because they don't, as much as like they care about your dreams and your goals, they're so focused and they're so busy that really what they're trying to do is get to the next level in their life, in their career. And they've got other shit to worry about. They don't need to worry about your dreams and your ambitions. They will help you, but you have to help them get there in order for them to uplift you. So the higher they go, the higher they're pulling you up with you, and the more opportunity you have. So it was very much like, put my ego aside, never ask for anything. How can I help? How can I learn? And that to me was like, what do you need? Like, okay, you need questions for interviews. You need notes. Let me write you some. Here, you didn't ask for them. I'll give you them. Oh, you use them. Here's them again. Here's them again. And then at some point they're like, can we get questions? Can we get notes? What would you put? Hey, when this person comes in, this is going to be a clip. Ask them about this. This is the headline. Boom. Post it, trending on Twitter. Okay, the next time, hey, here's the list of stuff that we got. What do we post? So I think it became one of those things where I was so hungry and so passionate, and it became so invaluable to them that like they would give me opportunities. They would let me do a red carpet. You know, they would let me go on air and say like, and break down the bars of, you know, Kendrick in the Heart Part 4. And was he dissing Big Sean and Drake? Like, I was doing the same shit. It was just like on a smaller level at that point. So they knew what I was good at, and they would give me opportunities. Or I spoke to Majid Jordan on air for the first time ever asking a question to anyone. Ironically, they're like, Jeremy's from Canada. He's our intern. Or, you know, Migos is there. And they're like, Quavo, our intern's from Canada. It's his first day. Like, and Quavo's like, oh, Murder Beach is also from Canada. Do you want this one? Like, so it's like all those other things. I didn't ask for anything. I was just myself. I showed up, I uplifted, I gave good energy. I gave what I could, and they, you know, gave me back tenfold opportunities.
Nah, man, that's dope, man. And from there, you moved from Power 106 to HipHopDX.
Yeah.
Is that correct, or is there anything between there?
I mean, there was some little jobs here and there. I was doing some internships. And then I was also working at a Toronto platform at the time before they were famous on YouTube.
Big salute to Steamin' Hot Grabba with a variety of different grabba flavors and dispensers. They got red rose grabba, that red herring grabba, and peanut butter. Hit them up on their Instagram page, Steamin' Hot Grabba, and use the code WeLoveHipHop and receive a discount on your order. Again, you can find them on Instagram, Steamin' Hot Grabba. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't Mike. Michael McCrudden is who owned and started.
I know that, but I feel
but
like
you probably see me on that channel. So
Yeah.
I actually go viral for it at least once every 2 to 3 months, because there's a clip of me. What I used to do is I would write bars for the beginning of the intro, and I would do it in such a corny way on purpose, where it would be like a list of like 10 songs of an artist, and I would use it in a sentence. So it'd be like, you know, before, like, you thought Drake started from the bottom, like, and he wasn't taking care, like, he created headlines. Like, that's the way I would like kind of flow. Morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this. I'm your host, Jeremy Hecht, taking you through the life and career of Yes Lord Anderson .Paak. So I did it with Playboy Cardi, and all the Cardi meme pages clipped me, and they cut me off right before I even finished my sentence. So it just looks like that was like an isolated clip. So it goes viral every once in a while. People like recognize me in the street still from that moment. But I actually was interviewing people at USC using their media room. I wasn't in the journalism program. I was in the communications and PR program.
Right.
But I would basically hang out with the journalism people and like study with them and just like hang out with their classes and stuff. And so they had a media room where it was like a nice screen and a laptop, and you could like produce podcasts and stuff. So I interviewed Michael remotely after my brother sent me his, like, he found his email. He's like, yo, you should email this guy. He's got a big channel. He's from Canada. Like, cool. So there's a clip on that interview. I think it probably still only has like 500-600 views on YouTube. And he said, yo, you're a really good idea, guy. We got to get you on the team. And like, I thought he was like just kind of kidding, but you know, months later, I'm working an internship that I didn't really like at a PR firm, like doing like healthcare PR and auto PR, which is cool. But like, I just, you know, I'm a music guy. I'm reading DJ booth blogs when I'm, you know, at lunch and watching Everyday Struggle. So he offered me a job as a host, researcher, and writer. And so I was like, fuck it, I'll buy a green screen. I'll go. And I became like a full-time YouTuber for a year and a half working on the Before They Were Famous channel.
that, you know what's funny? I've interviewed Michael. Salute to Michael McCrudden.
Yeah, salute to
right?
Michael. He gave me a big opportunity.
And I've been on the channel 2 times too. I did the Pressa Before They Were Famous, and I did Chromas Before They Were Famous. I co-hosted them.
Oh, fire. I think I've seen that. I saw the Presso one. That's fire. That's great. Yeah, shout out to Michael. He really, he gave me a big opportunity when I had no experience hosting on camera. I didn't know how to use my lighting, my camera. I looked like washed out. I was like, monotone, like, but he saw potential. And, you know, I'd like to say I proved him right.
Teleprompter work, everything goes over there, man. So then from there, and you know, another common thread that we have between each other, once again, Justin Hunte, who was the face of HipHopDX for a long time, right? Yeah. He's the creator of the breakdown.
Literally created YouTube hip hop breakdowns, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Right? So, you know, when he left, I seen a few other people over there at HipHopDX. I remember Murs was over there for a while. Jamie Kennedy was over there for a while. Paige Kennedy, my bad. Yeah. He was over there for a while. And then I started seeing you pop up.
Yeah, and it was funny because the way it happened is, again, like God's timing, you can't make it up, is I was at a Power 106 red carpet that nobody else could attend. And again, like I'm at the point now where I get it, you know, like there's a lot that happens. You have, you know, family, you have career, you have ambition, you have opportunities. Something comes up that to me as a, you know, 22-year-old intern is, wow, this is crazy. To them is like, this is another day. So it was a Will Smith Netflix red carpet, and they were like, Jeremy, you know, you helped out at one of our red carpets. You're always there. You know, like, do you want to do the interviews? It'll just be you, though. You got to do your own camera. You can do the interview. I'm like, yes, absolutely. I'll be there. So I remember I wrote like a interview. I had the sheet of like who was going to be there. I wrote like specific questions for each person. And I remember I was like asking people around me for help. Like I was like, I remember like, Larry King said like the first time he was on air, it was better for him to admit that it was his first time on air and have people feel like they wanted to cheer for him rather than him try to act like he had it all put together. So I was asking people around me like, hey, can you help me with my camera? What's the setup? Like, what do I do? You know, like, how does this work? And I got to remember that I'm at Power 106 because I'm thinking like I'm a kid, like, these people have been doing this forever. Like, I'll just stand at the back. They're like, you're Power 106, come to the middle. I'm like, what? They're like, do you want to interview Ice Cube? Or, do you want to interview Exhibit? Do you want to interview MGK, Ty Dolla $ign? I was like, sure, sounds good. And it was funny because the people around me who had been doing it for a long time, I would ask questions like that. It was very me. Like the way I would ask questions, I was like charismatic or personable or very like well-researched in the same way that I am now. And people would be like, wait, this is your first time? Like, they're like thinking I duped them. Like, are you sure that this is your first? Like, are you fucking with us? Like, you killed that. Like, and so it was like cool to have support. But the people right next to me were HipHopDX. And shout out to Pro Jason, who was the Prolific. He's actually, he was a dope rapper, but he was the head of HipHopDX video. And he's actually now known as the Slum Doge Millionaire. He was the first person to make $1 million off of Doge, and he was in a recent Apple documentary. But it was him and Jake Rohn, who's doing the interviews, also a great guy, super talented. They were next to me on the carpet, and the last person to walk the carpet was, of course, Will Smith. And I didn't know this at the time, but they don't do interviews with everyone. They just walk. And especially the stars, for the most part, they might do like an E, or at that point, maybe he did a Netflix interview, but that's pretty much it. So he's walking past everyone. Everyone's like kind of like yelling, and like it felt like such a target. I can't describe it, but it just felt like such a targeted moment for me where he's walking by, everyone's just yelling at him. He probably passed 15 reporters, and I just said, hey, Will, hey, Will, if aliens came here, do you think that would unite all of humanity and we would forget about racism and sexism and all of our problems? And he turned back and he was just like, yeah, actually, I do think that. I think if we had a problem like that, we'd probably look at what we're doing over here and be like, we should focus about that bigger problem over there. So yeah. And then he turned away and kept walking. And it was like, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I realized I wasn't in frame because of my camera. I was doing my own camera.
Right.
And so the people next to me at HipHopDX, Pro had been filming me on his phone too. And so we stayed connected, and I was like, hey, like, can I get the footage, whatever? And then he saw what I was doing before they were famous, and he was like, hey, maybe we could work together on something. Like, do you write your own stuff? Whatever. I'm working on some voiceover videos. And at that point, it's funny because I was about to start my own. I mean, I had a YouTube channel from making music, but I was about to start posting hip hop content on it, like breakdown content, Justin Hunte-esque. And I had a video, and it was here's how $20,000 feature from Trey Songz changed Drake's life. That was like the title of the video. And
nice title, man.
Thank you. That was partially Pro, partially me. But basically the idea is how Trey Songz really broke Drake in America. Right. And I hadn't seen the story told. So I had this like really cool 10-minute script. And I was like, yo, I just want to let you know, I have this script. I don't know if it's something you guys would be interested in. So I sent it to him, and he's like, yo, like, I'll give you $75 for it. Or I think it was like $75, maybe 175, 100 tops. It was like, it wasn't a whole lot of amount, but I've never gotten paid for writing about music before. So I was like, all right, fuck it. Like, take it. I haven't launched my channel really. Like, you guys have a big base, go for it. First day he does the voiceover and he posts it, and it does the edit. 700,000 views first week, and their biggest video besides anything Justin had done. So I was like, oh shit, okay, like I got something here. Like we got something here. So from there, he would hit me up to do scripts, to do, filming, to do interviews and like, or not interviews, to just like help out with like the set. And it's funny because the same thing kind of happened where you become invaluable enough, they're going to keep you around. Like, and you stay ready and you stay prepared. And if an opportunity comes, then you're going to be the one to step into it. So when JEEZY, it was for a show, Crook's Corner. Shout out to Crooked I, King Crooked, one of the best rappers of the West Coast, you know, of all time, I would say. But also he had a great show called Crook's Corner that was produced partially on his own and then partially on HipHopDX for a season. Good. And I was there for, ironically, a Daylight interview. And then that was the first one. And then I think I helped out Snow the Product, who I had done it before they were famous on. So I met her and that was cool. And then one of the interviews was JEEZY. That was the biggest one they had that season. And it was supposed to be for Crook's Corner, but Crooked I was out of town and he couldn't do it. And the editor-in-chief, Trent, was out of town as well, and he couldn't do it. And I had already been writing the questions for, you know, like not necessarily word for word, but just topics for Crook and be like, here, you know, here's some things you could ask. Here's some things that we could talk about that could be clips. And so I texted the group and I was like, yo, I have all the questions, like, just let me do the interview. Cause that was always my ambition. Like, it wasn't like I hadn't been doing interviews on the side, but it just never with a big name.
Right.
And I had done the red carpet, you know, it's like, not like I had no experience, but this is my first sit down interview with an artist, and it was JEEZY and, or like an artist of that magnitude. And so I sit there and I'm behind the camera and I'm just asking questions. And I remember at the end of the interview, he said, like, that was a really good interview. Like, I'll be back, you know? And I was like, oh shit. Like, and then we post clips and I was editing the clips myself and, you know, making sure I put extra sauce on it. And I was sending it out to, like, I sent it out to Def Jam and I sent it out to Genius and I sent it out to Mike Boyd, who was on Gary V's team at the time, who I had asked him about Gary V because he put him on the intro of his album at the time. So this video these videos go everywhere. And like, that was my first time getting a widespread viral moment. And it was my first ever interview. So from there, I put together a presentation. I showcased it to the CEO. Shout out to Sharth, who was the CEO and founder of HipHopDX. And he kind of saw the vision and he's like, all right, like, go for it. Like, help us with some more interviews. So that's how I kind of got to DX.
Nice. And then from there, like, you've been making content. Now you're there at HipHopDX, right? Like, now I see your face on a bunch of thumbnails. You're doing interviews. You just recently had an interview with Ice Cube. Dope.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I'm here with HipHopDX, and I'm sitting next to a man that I could do no justice with an introduction.
Right. Go. And now you're doing the bigger picture, right? Full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I wonder, as a white gentleman, okay, in a room, right, with two guys, like, you're the white guy in the middle. They put you right in the middle.
Yeah.
When you're having conversations and you guys are getting into debates and stuff like that, when and how do you know when to put your input or when to not put input as a white Canadian on top of that?
Yeah, it's been an interesting thing to learn, I would say, but I think my instinct and my intuition has always been pretty clear with that. I'll go back a little before I get here. I've always made it my point of trying to be not just an ally in the space, but someone who can still represent hip hop for the white person who doesn't understand hip hop. I still like to be that bridge to some degree. Like, for example, there's people who like have certain stereotypical views of hip hop. If I'm in the room and I like to be the guy who's knowledgeable enough to know enough about hip hop that I can then portray to these people over here, be like, that you actually are mistaken, or that's actually racist, or that's actually stereotypical. So I like to do that in my own community first. And so I feel like I was trained through that. Now, when it comes to being in the, and also I've said no to a lot of things because I personally didn't feel it was in my integrity. I said no to, I won't go into specific scenarios, but I've said no to money. I've said no to covering certain topics that I was asked to cover at certain jobs. Hey, do this. And I've said no with my job on the line because I don't believe that that's going to be A, good for my image, B, good for your image, C, good for what this space is all about. Yeah. So I've remained that line very hard lined throughout my career. But then when it comes to especially the bigger picture, I'm not going to lie, it was a big insecurity that I had going into this year, going into 2024. Like I did this is on this more spiritual side, but I did a manifestation mantra based meditation, and it was to remove blockages in your life. So what it was, and if anyone, wants to try something like this, it was extremely life-changing for me. On the left hand, you write down anything that you feel is a blockage in your life. And on the right hand, you write down the flip of that blockage and how you can actually turn it into a positive, and why this is actually just your inner critic telling you things that aren't true. Right. The biggest blockage I had, and I wrote this down, was you are just a white Canadian kid who doesn't deserve to have a voice in the culture that you love. That was my big block. I thought that, I believed it, and I wrote it down, and then I looked at it and I said, okay, how do I flip that? Because the exercise forces you to flip it. So I flipped it, and what I wrote down on the other side was, all you've ever done was be guided by your passion and the things you love. You grew up and loved this culture and loved this music. You didn't choose to. It was called to you. All you can ever do is be yourself, give a unique perspective, and the rest is out of your hands. And you will move with integrity. And once I wrote that and flipped it and just meditated on and thought about it, I feel like God cleared all boundaries for me, because right after that is when I started going viral with all the lyric breakdowns. Right after that is when the bigger picture happened. I truly believe that once I took that out of my own head, it became more limitless for me, if not completely limitless. So when I go onto a stage and I'm like, oh, is this something I should touch on? If integrity, if intuition, if God tells me this is something you could speak on, then I will, and I'll give my honest opinion. But there's moments where it's like, if we're talking about gang culture in LA, I don't have anything to say. I have nothing to add. With even to the point where, like, the not like us term, to some degree, I might fit into that. Like maybe this isn't for me all the time. Maybe certain things that are being spoken about aren't for the white Canadian to speak about, and maybe I can just defer. Now, sometimes I think that there's a point where, like, maybe that comes to the point where it's like, no, you can actually speak about that. You do it with respect. But I try to just err with caution of, like, if I feel like I have something valuable to add to this conversation, even if it's an outsider perspective, I will. And if I don't, then I'll just be quiet.
No, that's smart, man, because it's like there's a lot of touchy conversations that happen that are very culturally influenced. For example, the not like us conversation, Fat Joe with the whole FBA conversation. Like, these are things that probably come up on your podcast, and it's kind of like, do I speak on it? Do I not? Yep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think where I do want to make sure that I'm clear, and I think that was something I made as a New Year's resolution, is to always make clear where I stand on issues that I feel matter. Even if it's coming from a white guy, sometimes it means more, where yes, certain people are going to feel a certain way, but the white people are usually the ones who aren't speaking out. Right. And so sometimes you need the ally in the other to actually bring more light and more awareness. So, for example, I had no problem calling out certain actions of people that I feel misrepresented the culture, who are white people in the same culture as me, who I don't identify with because I don't like the way that they move, or I don't feel like what they've said was with integrity, or I feel like I just wouldn't have done it the way that they've done it. So that's where I feel like I use my platform more to call out my own people than it is to necessarily call out some people that I feel like maybe it isn't my place to. That doesn't mean if something's egregious or something's like disrespectful or something, that I won't call it out. But that's where I feel like it's more like, let me talk to you because, they can say it, but I want to say it to you as a fellow white person in this space who operates with integrity.
Yeah. Now, you've been doing well. And, like you said, you come from the heart when you give your takes and stuff like that. Have you ever gotten the term culture vulture thrown at you, though? I want to take a quick second from this episode to introduce you guys to The Gas Station, a new dispensary located at 260 Gary Avenue that prides themselves on having the best smoke products from across the GTA, the best gases, the hottest grabber, and the most exclusive backwoods flavor like Zaza, banana, and chocolate. The gas station is a one-stop shop for serious smokers. Repost our promo video on your socials and get a free half quarter on your next visit. Make sure to hit them up at The Gas Station 416 on Instagram, or go check them out at 260 Gary Avenue in Toronto. Salute to the gas station. Cheer!
Very rarely, which I'm thankful for, but you're never gonna avoid it completely. Like I just recognize that. Like, for example, like from the first time I ever did interviews, or the first time I ever put my face on camera and spoke about hip hop, there's going to be one comment or some people who are going to say Culture Vulture. And and honestly, if that's an opinion that someone has, fine, you can have it. Like, I'm not going to go back and forth. No, I'm not. You don't know. I let the people talk for me. So I feel like my reputation precedes me by anyone who's seen me, watched me, has spent time with me, or has interacted with me in person. And so when someone says that, I have people coming to my defense who will be like, no, you don't know. Yeah. You actually don't understand, Jeremy. So I'd rather have people argue for me and talk about who I am than me have to tell people like, no, you don't understand. I'm actually just like in love with hip hop, and I'm trying to come from a good place, and you don't want to see my heart. You don't like, I'm not going to
run down your history and everything all over again.
You know who I interviewed on the red carpet at the Grammy? Like, no, but yes, of course you get it. But very rarely, I will say, compared to what maybe some other people in the space have, which is I'm thankful for.
Yeah. And, staying on the, you just mentioned like some other people in the space, and I know you're not thinking this, but it's one of my questions that I actually have on my page here, right? We're getting to a nice flow here towards the end of our conversation. And one of the questions I asked, because a fellow Canadian, also in the media space, is my homie Matt from What's the Dirt.
Yeah.
Okay. Recently, like, he went from super, super viral to very hated. Are you seeing this right now?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. Like, there was videos like let's start from the virality. Like, he made the prediction that the battle was going to happen in one of his breakdown videos.
Yeah.
Right. And had a great relationship like with Justin Hunte at one point. And, I was kind of stuck in the middle of that because I interviewed both of them. And my clips came up. Right. But from there, it went on. Like, I just watched the video from Deleted, a whole bunch of things. Right. What do you think that he did as a misstep as a white person in the culture to where he got here? And what can he do to bring himself back?
It's really interesting because so I felt like I was actually in the middle of that a little bit as well. I actually had a cordial relationship with Matt. I had his number saved as What's the Dirt, which I just do for my own sake of when I save people in content. But what I try to do with my platform is anytime I see anyone doing dope shit or really respecting what they're doing, their craft, and are passionate, I always reach out. Like, I'll hit people and be like, yo, and it may not be publicly, but I'll always reach out and be like, yo, I love what you do. Like, keep going, continue. Like, let's connect. I'm trying my best this year to make it a goal of mine to actually outwardly uplift as many people as possible. So like shout people out on my YouTube page or on the podcast or the show or whatever it may be. But me and him had spoken on the phone for, I want to say like an hour, just about the game, about media. He was asking me for some advice. And I was kind of just telling him like, I really respect what he does because he respected his craft a lot. So I would say that was right after the 616 in LA breakdown.
Right.
Now the Family Matters breakdown drops, right? And I think there was a lot of missteps in not only that video, but I think similarly to what happened to Drake in the reaction to the backlash or the reaction to the loss. Rather than taking it in stride and taking the criticism and the critique of your actions, of what you did in stride, and actually taking accountability and maybe just laying low for a bit.
Yeah. I
think what he did, which was, in my opinion, the big mistake, the first big mistake, and I thought me and him were cool. He has me blocked on Instagram, so I don't even know that he'll see this. I
breaking news. That's crazy.
I don't know what we did, but his Instagram page doesn't, or I don't know what I did personally, but his Instagram page doesn't pop up for me anymore. But so his big mistake was going at Justin in a way that was so disrespectful and distasteful that it only doubled down on the points that everyone was critiquing him on. Like, for example, he made stupid decisions with the Family Matters video, right? Like, we all know the 37 N-words comments, but beyond that, I think what he was trying to do was appease a fan base of Drake stans rather than be objective with the truth, which he had been doing. Like you said, he predicted certain things, like from push-ups to 616. There's multiple videos on each artist, and I do believe that he was being objective in what he was speaking because he was dissecting the lyrics.
Right.
But the 616 video, and shout out to YouTube channel Chillin' with Moni. She likes to claim that video did more to harm Drake's reputation than any Kendrick diss track. Because the 616 video put all of those things into the light, back to back to back.
Right.
The accusations, the interviews, the weird interactions with women. He put that all out there and broke it down to a T. And again, I don't think he was Kendrick glazing in that video. I think he was breaking down what Kendrick was saying and giving you context so you can understand it as a fan.
You were doing a breakdown video.
He was doing a breakdown. Yeah. I think with the Family Matters video, the intention there was more so to appease Drake fans, to showcase, hey, I know I did that damage to Drake over there with the Kendrick video, but I can also do this over here, and I can uplift Drake again. Look Kendrick, look what Kendrick did. Look, I found some information. So I think the intent wasn't the same. So I think that was his big mistake with that video. And then his big mistake with reacting was Justin Hunte, who's the most respected, like we talked about earlier. He's the reason I do what I do. He's the reason we know each other. He's the reason that you two break down. He is the reason that What's the Dirt is able to have a career.
Yes.
I'll admit, he's the reason we're all in this space doing what we do. So to disrespect his critique, which was very respectful, by the way, it was very respectful. To disrespect his respectful critique disrespectfully and attack him personally, that I think is where his second big mistake lies. And I think that he never recovered fully from that. I think he did apologize. He took accountability. Yes. I actually made a video on my channel where I spoke about, and I messaged him before too. I was like, yo, I'm just so you know, I'm going to speak about this situation. Justin Hunte referenced me in his breakdown where he said, he's told Matt and he said, you're not even the best from your country at what you do. You're not Jeremy Hecht. So I'm now like in the middle of this a little bit. So I hit Justin. I was like, yo, I appreciate the words. Thank you. I'm going to make a reaction. I hit Matt. I was like, yo, just so you know, I'm about to make a reaction. It's going to be less about you and more about being white within the space. But just so you know, because I don't like talking about people without telling them I'm going to talk about them.
Right.
So, if I have a personal relationship, like I said, we recorded. So I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to make this video. So I made this video and it became, I think a lot of people used it as like, here's how you can move with class and integrity as a white person in hip hop. And, Justin thanked me. A lot of people who I didn't expect to even watch me thanked me and said like, hey, this is like, thank you for this video. This really is like, good advice for a lot of fellow white people in hip hop. So from there, Culture United happened. And so I think, maybe, and all of these people were, people that came to Justin's defense. If I had to get inside his brain as to why he has any problem with me, maybe he just sees me on, team Justin Hunte and, the media Avengers and everyone. A lot of those people had, critical things to say about him and came to Justin's defense with, that's fine if that's how he wants to feel. But I think his big mistake after that publicly was he continued to try to appease everyone. You can't please everyone. And if you're going to try to do a little thing like this is going to help Kendrick fans like me and this, you don't understand. Let me do something with Drake. Stand on it though. Like I think he would post videos or post stories and then delete it, or like post a video saying that, Drake was wrong and then delete it when the Drake fans came for him. And so I think, what do you believe? Who are you? What do you stand for? If you stand with integrity and you do things that you believe in, then just stand on it. That's, and I think he can come back from it, but you have to come back with integrity. I texted him, actually, this is how I found out that I was blocked. Cause I texted him, I was like, yo, I think you should do the family. No, you should do the Meet the Grams breakdown because nobody broke down 616 like you. Like
Right.
you did the best. You did the quintessential breakdown of that song. You could actually be the quintessential breakdown of
Meet the
Grams because there's ways like nobody else could put it together, or nobody else was going to put it together in the same way you would. So I texted him that, and then he didn't respond. And then I had seen someone post something he said on Instagram, like crashing out about, you know, Kendrick fans or about like something. And I was like, oh, damn, I can't even see it. So I don't know if he has been, you know, standing on his beliefs or doing things. I haven't seen it, but I would advise anyone who's in that position to just do what you believe in, do what you're good at, do your craft. Don't worry about the outside noise, and don't get in the weeds and in the mud with every little person who's attacking. Like, if that's never going to win.
No, salute to Matt from What's the Dirt, man. That's some great advice, and I'm going to add some advice onto that for, you know, if he sees this, right, and he'll probably will see this. Don't let the fans make you crash out, because that's something that these fans will do, especially that I've learned in these times during this Kendrick and Drake battle, because it's been a quintessential moment in hip hop that's really made fans like activate in a different way that I've never seen before. So it's like, if you're worried about what you're doing with your commentary or your videos or your POV of anything about what people are going to be doing in the comments or your likes or whatever, it's going to make you crash, man.
Yeah.
I have a hard time sometimes even taking my own advice.
It's hard. People are in those comments like brutal, you know, like no matter what, where you're at, what side you're taking, what you're saying, if you're stating a strong opinion, or if you have, you know, facts or breakdowns that go against another side, you're going to get those stands. But Elliot actually gave me good advice. And, you know, I would say that sometimes he probably has to look at his own advice and you know, get out of the weeds, because it's hard when so many people, like I've met people at the highest level and they have trouble doing this. So, you know, this is coming with just from people who are still dealing with this. But what he told me was, you're a fan, but you can't act like you're just a fan.
Yeah.
Like, you are who you are now. And the more that you associate yourself with just a guy on the internet, is the more you're going to get in trouble going back and forth with people that you're now bringing to your level, right? Like, it's like we've built platforms through work, through years of work, through research, through passion, through caring about what we do. And some random person with 6 followers and an owl in their bio, or 150 followers and PG Lang in their bio, if you're letting those people guide your work, or you're bringing them up and saying, yes, we're having a one-to-one conversation now and we're on the same level, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're also already losing. Because right now, this person has nothing to lose. Yeah. If they have 6 followers and you just gave them mindfulness in your head, living rent free, or you gave them a comment back, or you gave them a retweet or a YouTube reaction, then now that person with 6 followers is thinking they have the power because they have nothing to lose. They could say some crazy shit. It's cool. You say some crazy shit, you're getting 15 YouTube reactions against it.
Yeah, yeah. And those people don't even got platforms. Like, they're not even going to take that motion and go back on their show and be like, yeah, I just had a back and forth with Elliot or Jeremy in the comments. Like, you don't even you have no platform. Your platform is the comments.
They're going to tell their homie, like, yo, look what this person, look what he just responded to me. This is crazy.
Yeah. Don't crash out for the fans, man.
Yeah.
Last couple of questions I have here, right? With the this whole battle that's happened and the lawsuit that Drake has put down on Universal, all right? We had the great discussion about that on the Culture United series. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people are mad about this. The industry's obviously mad at him, but the culture got really mad at him because this is based on a rap battle. My question to you as Canadians, okay, because this is a Canadian conversation we're having right now.
Just between us Canadians. Hey.
Just the two of us.
Virginia, step back. Okay, this is just.
Do you think that us, not us, because we're cool. We're not artists anymore, right? but the artist in the scene, for example, Toronto, especially, and other places like Winnipeg, Vancouver, do you think we take a hit from the way that the culture is being reacting to Drake?
Do we take a hit from the way the culture is reacting, or do we take a hit from his actions?
Well, the reactions to his action, right? Like, there's mad videos, and if you go on Twitter, there's all these rat memes and stuff like that of Drake, and there's a bunch of Toronto rappers out here that are like, hey, we're not even associated with this guy. Like, we ain't suing nobody, like, listen to us. Do you think that's going to be a problem?
I hope not. I don't see why it would. What I will say is people don't really seem to fully grasp out here that Drake became the gate that opened for Canadian artists to really make a splash in the music industry. Like, I think in order to understand what the repercussions are, people need to understand the origins. And like Drake, by becoming the biggest rapper in the world from Canada, and not only that, putting on Toronto to a large degree as a city, like they said something, like I think he made like at its peak something like $500 million for the city.
400, yeah,
$400 million
a year,
in tourism, right? And that's from views from the six, like talking about the city, mentioning streets in songs, like Weston Roads flows, like all these things were bringing light to the city. So Drake being on opened a lot of doors. Now, not that many people broke through those doors, but they were open. Tory Lanez is a product of Drake's success. The Weeknd is a product of Drake's success to some degree. Of course, he helped Drake a lot with Take Care, and The Weeknd is the biggest superstar in the world. Musically, he didn't necessarily need Drake, but Drake helped The Weeknd. The Weeknd helped Drake. Yeah. Party Next Door, all of these people, even to some degree, if you want to look at like a Justin Bieber, I don't know what Justin Bieber is if Drake didn't first help break that ceiling. I mean, he's the biggest star again in the world, so talent-wise, he's fine. But the fact that Drake did all that for Canada meant that he was kind of attached to it to some degree. People also don't realize you needed to go to America still to bring it back home to make it. None of these people made it in Toronto without Drake's association. So Drake still went to America, and I made that video we talked about earlier where he had a feature from Trey Songz and he was on BET, and that's how you meet Jay Prince and Lil Wayne. So you still make it here and you come back. Tory Lanez is, made it in America, came back to Canada. Mm-hmm. But that being said, because of his association being so strong with Canada, and there not being that many other artists who have broken free and broken through that glass ceiling, maybe his actions get too much attached to the entire country to some degree. Like I do see why people either rep so hard for Drake from Canada because their success is partially reliant on that, they feel like. Mm-hmm. But I also don't think that it's helpful to simply stick by someone just because of that association. If you do disagree with their actions, if you don't want to be associated with that action. Right. Like, I think now is the time for maybe more artists to create their own vibe in Canada. And like you said, there's so many people who already are and believe that they don't have to be one-to-one tied to this entity over here or this artist over here, and that maybe something new can build as this happens. So I hope it doesn't. I really do hope it doesn't.
No, I really hope so. I hope not neither, because like I was explaining to you earlier, the amount of artists that I listed off to you, and if you go through my channel, the amount of artists that I've interviewed, there's probably 5% at the most of those artists that are like directly associated to Drake, that like a Pressa or somebody that hang out with Drake or have Smiley. Like I gave Smiley his first interview.
Wow. Shout out to Smigs.
Big salute to Smigs, right? But like these guys are like Drake associated. Yeah. But I've interviewed hundreds of artists, like not dozens. I'm talking about hundreds of artists. And then none of them have had to have the OVO cosign to get known in their city, at least. Yeah, I'm sure would help them to get more worldwide attention. But as far as known in the city, there's a lot of people that people know in this city that are not directly linked to Drake. So I say all that to say, I don't want, you know, the American audience who's mad at Drake to be like, I don't want to listen to any Toronto rappers or any rappers from Canada.
Yeah, and that's something, you know, I would urge. Hopefully there's not too many people like that, but I would urge anyone in America who's closed-minded about the rest of Canadian hip hop to also open their mind. And there's just in the same way that there's a million different, you know, types of rappers in Atlanta or New York or LA, you know, there's also a million different types of rappers in Toronto who all have different sounds and different values and move differently and have different crews. So it's like, you know, I think it shouldn't be this only one can exist. You know, you can, you can have both. You could love Drake and still love these artists, or you can disagree with Drake and still listen to these artists. So I hope that that people have an abundance mindset in consumption and in making music. Yeah.
Well said, man. Listen, Jeremy, I enjoyed having this conversation with you here, man. We locked in almost an hour and 30.
Let's go.
In closing, you know, what's your next moves, you know, HipHopDX related, as well as like yourself as a content creator, you know, what you got coming up next?
So I'm really this year trying to build on the success of 2024. I would say if you told me at the beginning of the year what the end of my year looked like, I wouldn't have even necessarily imagined it. So I'm trying to keep an open mind of just being open to trusting God, trusting timing and divine timing and my intuition. And with YouTube, I'm really trying to build my personal YouTube up. But rather than getting into, you know, trying to react to everything, I do have a platform weekly I can do that on. And I do a lot on my Instagram. On my YouTube, I'm trying to do a lot more in terms of some interviews and then also some deep dive videos and connecting, you know, God and connecting music and connecting hip hop and connecting culture in ways that make sense to all of the kind of, if you look at my wall, you know, I have Frank Ocean and I have Nikola Tesla and I have Mac Miller and I have, you know, football and a hockey jersey and, you know, like a space thing. So I try to connect all these things on some of the videos I'm working on. And then a couple of shows with UpRocks and HipHopDX that I'm working on, for the rest of the year. So you'll see me. If you're tired of my face, you're not done seeing it. I'll say that.
Hey man, dude, it sounds like the journey is just beginning, man.
Thank you, bro. And I appreciate the time. I appreciate you having me. I appreciate the thoughtful conversation. And also, like I said earlier, I appreciate what you're doing for the country, for Toronto, for Canadian hip hop and for hip hop as a whole. So I'm looking forward to continuing to stay connected for sure.
Oh, thank you, brother. For all the people out there, if you want to find Jeremy Hecht, hit him up on his Instagram, Jeremy underscore Hecht, HECHT. Okay. That's the same for YouTube, obviously.
Yeah, same for YouTube and same for Twitter or X.
Okay. Dope.
And TikTok for however long we have it.
Yeah. At least for the next 3 months.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Well, thank you, brother. We'll talk soon, I'm sure, and we'll probably see each other when we do on a panel.
Sounds good, bro. Appreciate you, and thank you to the audience and the chat and everybody who's watching. If nobody else has told you yet today, I appreciate you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to check out these other videos on the screen and make sure to like and subscribe.
We love hip hop.